join the meeting in our week 7 channel. Am I audible?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, that's good to know. This is very sudden. I was not expecting that we will be doing our class for today online. But anyway, before we begin, let's first have our opening prayer. I am inviting everyone to please be with me as we start our class with an opening prayer. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord and Father of all, thank you for today. Thank you for ways in which you provide for us all. For your protection and love, we thank you. Help us to focus our hearts and minds now on what we are about to learn. Inspire us by your Holy Spirit as we listen and write. Guide us by your eternal light as we discover more about the world around us. We ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good afternoon, everyone. Praised be Jesus and Mary.
Now and forever.
Okay, I as of now I can see 13 students inside this meeting or 13 people. I'm not sure if I'm included there or it's only you class. So, but anyway, um just like what I've mentioned last time we had our meeting here in uh translation and editing of text, we will be discussing right now about literary translation. Okay? Although we have translated already an example of a literary text, just like what we've done in our first meeting, that's an example of a literary text. But in that particular activity, we only had to translate passages. It's not the whole excerpt. It's only paragraphs as I assigned you that activity I have given you. So for this segment, before we begin with our discussion with literary translation, okay, later on, I'll be asking you questions. But let's tackle first what literary translation is all about. So literary translation, as what we've experienced last time, it's working with a text in its original language to prepare a new version or a version in a new language. Basically, that's what we know of when we speak of translation in general. So, this particular work, which is literary translation, is promoting broader reading and distribution of the work. So, this is one of the challenges for us translators whenever we are translating literary pieces. It's because we're not just translating it per sentence, per paragraph, just like what we did last time. Here, we have to prepare ourselves to do broader or intensive reading. And afterwards, or after we've read the entire text or the entire literary piece, that's the only time we're able to translate them. Okay? So, this is the question I want to ask you. As an English as an English teacher, why do you think it's important for us literary translation, or why is the translation of literary works important? We're all English teachers here. So again, my question is, why do you think translation of literary works is important? Anyone from the class? Anyone who would like to answer this question? Why do you think literary translation is important for us English teachers? Uy, ano yan? Wala? If you want to answer, just raise your hand here in our meeting. You can actually find that option above your device if you're using laptop. You will see there an icon which represents race. So if you want to answer, just click raise, just like what I'm doing right now. I clicked it and it showed that I raised my hand on my end. So that's also what you need to do if you want to answer. Again, my question is, it's already flashed on the screen. As an English teacher, why literary translation is important for us. Sige, I'll be calling names na lang. Okay, let's have Julian.
Try lang po, sir. I think po as an English teacher po, being able to translate a literary works in, let's say, in English po, would allow us to share more knowledge or information about the culture of other countries, and also to make literary works more accessible, especially in English-speaking country and also in other country that speak other languages po.
Exactly. Very good. That's actually the very point of why it's important for us, this concept of literary translation. Because mind you, in the subjects that we will teach in the future, for example, in senior high school or in junior high, the subjects that you will be teaching there are more on literature. Believe me, particularly in junior high school, all of their English subjects are literature inclined. And when we talk of literature, we are also talking about those literary pieces that represented the history of the people who lived, for example, in America. Because in one of the subjects of the junior high school, I'm not sure if this is for grades 7, 8, 9, or 10, they have this subject of American English and American literature. They also have their Afro-Asian literature subject. So for you to be able to teach the very core or the very concept or the very idea or the very value that the literary piece is trying to teach your students, it's important for you to understand the text. And it's hard for us to understand the text if it's written in something or if it's written in their vernacular, right? So for example, in Africa, what is the main language that people speak there? Is it English? Oh, since we are teaching Afro-Asian literature, if we will teach Afro-Asian literature by means of just relying on how it was written by the author who wrote that particular literary piece, we will not understand it. And if we will not understand it, it will be too hard for us to teach the value or that particular literary piece to our students. And that's the importance of literary translation. And that's also the reason why we do have this subject. Okay? It's for us to be able to share, just like what Julian mentioned earlier. It's for us to be able to know further about the culture of those people whom we are studying. Uh, Particularly in uh, Asian literature, like Chinese literature, Japanese literature. You also have these subjects when you are already third year students here as a college student. So this will be your major subjects. And since you have this subject, the reason why you have this subject is because, again, in the future, you will be teaching literature. That's the main subject you will be teaching in English. So going back, I'm hoping that's we have established already the importance of literary translation or the very value of why we are talking about this. So we've answered already question number 1. Second, that I want you to ask yourselves, what do you think are the things that are involved in literary translation? Any guesses? I am not expecting for an exact or right answer. I just want to hear your guess or your answer in particular with this question. Sige, let's call Lara.
For me po, language accuracy.
Why do you say so? Why did you come up with language accuracy?
Because if I think if it's not translated just the way it is po, iba po yung meaning. The meaning of it will be different po.
Okay, I totally understand where you are coming from, but I think you misunderstood the question. For my question to be specific, what are the things that are involved for us to be able to translate a literary piece successfully? That's the question, or that's what I am trying to ask you in this question. But I'm not saying that Lara is incorrect in her answer. I think there's just a misunderstanding that happened between Lara and also the question that I have created here for my question number 2. I can see here Julian raising his hand. Do you have anything in mind?
I think po like competence in the English and other target language po.
Okay, competence. In what way?
Like when translating, like let's say Filipino literacy, you need to be competent in both English and Tagalog since you're actively using both language po in translating a literacy or literary.
Okay, that's correct. It's just, I think, broad. And for it to be specific, we will be discussing this right now. Okay? So here are the essential skills in line with what Julian mentioned earlier, competencies. Okay? This is also similar with essential skills so that we will be needing for literary translation. So I want you all to keep in mind this, that in literary translation, and actually it's not only for literary translation, with every translation, whether it be uh actually mostly that we will be translating are under literature. So we've already know sign languages, right? So it's also possible for us to translate sign languages. However, in sign languages, the concepts that I will be introducing here are not really being utilized. So anyway, the art of literary translation begins with the following. We have reading skills, writing skills, and also editing skills. These are the three things that you need to improve and you need to know for us or for you to be able to know how to successfully translate a literary piece. You need to know how to read. You need to know how to write, and you need to also know how to edit. Last time, when we translated the short passages that I've assigned you, the short paragraphs that I've assigned you per group, actually you were able to already utilize these skills. But how effective were you able to utilize them? And how knowledgeable are you when it comes to reading, when it comes to writing, and then when it comes to editing? These are the things again that I want you to ask yourselves. So these are the things that I want you all to improve because this is not only beneficial for us in the field of translation, but in general. For us to be a successful person, we need to know how to read and also write. And also edit. In line with writing is also editing. So a translator or us, we must be able to understand and appreciate the text in its original form. it's not only about understanding, it's also about appreciating. And when I ask you how many of you here appreciates literature, do you love reading books? Because it will be hard for us to appreciate the original form of a poem if we don't know or if we don't love reading poems. It's hard for us to appreciate the original form of a story if we ourselves don't, or if we ourselves don't know how to read or don't like reading. Kaya nga, naalala ko, naalala ko na naman. Sabi, when I was in college, we were actually required by our major teachers to read a certain book. And to share with you this, when I was in college or when I was in high school, I don't love reading books. I don't love reading books because for me, every time I'm reading books, it's like inaantok ako, I'm getting sleepy. That's the vibe. Hindi ko naiintindihan yung message. I just feel sleepy. And for me, what's the point of doing something if I can't really grasp the meaning or what the writer wants me to understand or to know? But since I took um, secondary education major in English, I've realized that it's really important for me to appreciate reading. Because if you don't appreciate reading, it's not only about translation, it's also about it will manifest in your teaching. It will manifest in your performance in teaching. Kaya ngayon pa lang, I am requesting every one of you to read lots of books. It is through my college teachers and professors who required me to read books. It is through that I have appreciated reading. I myself also don't like reading at first, but I've learned to love it. And as of now, I have read, I think, more than 5 books already. It's not that many, but these books that I have read, I'm proud that I was able to finish them because it's not easy to read books. Diba? I think it's more than 10, I guess. Books na yung mga nababasa ko. So kayo rin, it's through starting to read that you will learn how to love them. Or it's through starting how to read, you will learn how to love reading. Anyway, moving forward, the translator or you, we must use a writer's resources. So what are the writer's resources? Whenever a writer writes, that particular writer has his or her own style, has his or her own diction, has his or her own sentence structure or construction, has their own usage of imagery and figurative language. This is one of the reasons why I am really asking the education program to put this course or this subject, translation and editing of text, sa level na third year kayo or fourth year kayo. It's because not all of you here have your literature classes. Parang si Lara lang ata yung may literature subject dito sa inyo eh. So, medyo mahihirapan tayo mag-translate if you don't know yet these terms or if you don't know yet style, diction, sentence structure, if you don't know figurative language and all that, it will be too hard for us to translate. But anyway, since this is already part of our curriculum, this is already the curriculum that we follow, I have no choice but to review these things that I know you're familiar with already, but I'm sure not all of you here can still remember these ideas when it was taught to you when you were in senior high school or when you were in junior high school. So, talking about style, what do we mean by style? Sorry. In literature, when we talk of style, it's actually the way in which an author writes and or tells a story. It's what we call style. Okay? So sorry, I'm just ayusin ko lang yung buhok ko. Oh, tada, okay na. Ang bilis. Anyway, talking about style, like for example in your personal style when you're wearing clothes or in fashion, we do have our own styles, right? So it's also similar in writing. We do have our own style. Different authors, different writers have their own style in writing, and that makes them distinct from one another or different from one another. So when we talk of style as well, in addition to this, it's what sets one author apart from another and creates the voice that audiences hear when they read. So I don't know, for those who love reading, I know some of you loves reading here in the class. Um, I can relate with this, and to those who are avid fans of reading, I'm sure that when you're reading, you're hearing voices whenever you read. So that voice is actually uh, connected with the style that we are talking about right now. So rather than merely sharing information, style lets an author share his content in the way that he wants. So for example, let's take or let's put this into or let's have this context or let's have this example. An author needs to describe a situation where he witnessed a girl picking a flower. So we can actually write it in this way. She picked a red rose from the ground, right? In this particular sentence construction, what do you think is the style of the author or the writer? She picked a red rose from the ground. What style is this? It's very straightforward, right? It's very simple. Okay? And when we will translate this into Tagalog, it will also be simple. That's the idea of translation. Okay? When you know the style of the author, you also know how to translate it according to its style. So you see now how it works? So if I will be translating this simple sentence, a very straightforward sentence into Tagalog, it will be like this. Pumita siya ng pulang rosa sa lupa. As simple as that. Okay? So another way of describing this particular scenario is this one. Scarlet was the rose that she plucked from the earth or from the earth. O, di ba? It's the same idea. It also represents the same idea that a girl picked a flower, a red flower from the ground. Pero in this particular style, what have we noticed? In the previous style, we've seen it's very straightforward and it's very simple. What about in this particular example? What happened? Anyone? What do you think did the author use in this particular construction of him? Same lang, di ba? Same lang naman ang idea. It's just the same. The girl picked a red flower from the ground. But here, we've seen a different version of it. It has a different style. So going back, from simple sentence, she picked a red rose from the ground. Scarlet was the rose that she plucked from the earth. From simple, it became more descriptive and also more poetic. Right? It's different. Oh, this is my task for those who are here in our meeting. Try to create another sentence construction in your own style, describing that someone or a girl picked a flower from the ground or from the soil. Sige, I want you to create your own way of describing this or your own way of putting it into a sentence. And then I want you all to write it or comment it here in our chat box. I'll give you maybe 2 minutes to craft. Sige, your 2 minutes starts now. Let's see your style in writing, particularly in this sentence. That's the idea. You've seen a girl picking a red flower from the soil or from the ground. How will you reconstruct it in your own way? I'll be waiting for your responses here in our chat box. So let's see how or what is your style in writing? You still have 50 seconds to reconstruct the idea I've mentioned earlier into your own way of constructing it into a sentence. Have we seen responses already? Oh, yeah. From Roan, can you read this, Roan?
A rose that is full of thorns was picked from the ground.
Okay, that was Roan's construction of that very idea. I think there's missing here. You weren't able to mention the girl, but it's all right. It's just the same when it comes to its idea. What about Luella? Yan, okay. Let's hear Luella's construction of it. Sige, Luella, can you please read your sentence?
Rose is like a good smell of rose flower I buy from a store.
Okay, why did you come up with this sentence? Where did you get this? Because for me, the way I understood your construction, it's already different. Sige, I just want to know your explanation.
Doon po sir, para tinuha ko lang din po doon sa sentence. Hindi ko po masyado narinig kanina.
Okay, so I think you misunderstood the instruction I've given earlier. Anyway, thank you still for trying or for inputting or for putting your response here in our chat box. Let's hear Mariel's version.
Hello po, sir.
Hello,
Narinig po.
Mariel.
The rose is beautiful, that's why she picked.
Okay, that's another one. However, we already lost the very meaning of what I've mentioned earlier. Let's just stick with that, okay? But anyway, still, thank you, Mariel. Let's hear Angelica's, sorry, Julian. Julian's construction here.
A blood red rose is picked up from the soil by a girl.
Okay, that's how Julian constructed his own sentence. What about Angelica? Can you read your own construction of it? Angelica, are you there? And if Angelica's not here, allow me to read Angelica's construction. So from Angelica, Stacy pulled out the flower that was planted in the ground to move it to the pot. Oh, iba namang interpretation ko yung kay Angelica, no? But still has that meaning. Pero naglagay na siya ng name ng girl, tapos nalagay niya na yung reason bakit niya pinulot. Lara, Kilara, ito yung Kilara. Face, fingers brushed the soil as she plucked a flower. So yeah, no, it's nice to know your responses here. I am able to read it, and we have different ways of constructing it. And your own way of constructing it is your style in writing. That's what we mean by style. So now that you know what style is, I'm hoping that you will be able to incorporate style of the author in translating it into a different language. Okay, so let's now move forward with our discussion. So here, this is a more descriptive and more poetic way of saying this sentence. She picked a red rose from the ground. So how here, the translation of the earlier sentence is pumita siya ng pulang rosa sa lupa. Paano kaya natin to ita-translate in Tagalog? Okay? Okay. That's again my challenge with you. Right now, we've seen changes in its style. How will you translate this particular sentence into Tagalog, incorporating the style that is more descriptive and more poetic? So, sige, let's only have 1 minute for this. Sige, yan. Translate it into Tagalog and then type your answer or your response in our chat box. Again ha, our source text is in English. Our target text should be in Tagalog. Scarlet was the rose that she plucked from the earth. How will you translate this into Tagalog? We've seen already differences when it comes to the style of it. So yan. Paano niyo yan ita-translate into Tagalog? Okay, time's up. Let's see the responses of everyone. Wala pa, nahirapan eh, no? Ayan, sige, let's hear Roan's translation. Can you read it to us, Roan?
Ang pulang rosas ay pinitas ng babae mula sa lupa.
Okay. Ang pulang rosas ay pinitas ng babae mula sa lupa. That's Roan's translation of it. But did it became more is it poetic? Is it more descriptive? Because here the style of the writer is more descriptive and more poetic. So Roan, I will ask you this question. In your translation of it, do you think it's also more descriptive and more poetic?
No po. I think
Ayun.
the translation I made is more straightforward.
Yes. So yun yung dapat nating gawin, no? Kasi kanina mas magfo-fall to siguro dun sa kaninang style ng writer, 'di ba? Kasi medyo straightforward siya and simple. So how will we make it poetic? Let's try to see or let's try to hear Sister Zyriline's translation of it in Tagalog. Sister Zai, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can
Pinitas
you,
niya ang bulak sige.
yes,
Pinitas
yes.
niya
Can
ang
you read your
bulaklak sa
translation?
Pinitas niya ang bulaklak sa mundo gamit ang kanyang malarosas na kamay.
Okay. This is a more poetic translation, but the problem with Sister Zai's translation is what? Pinitas niya ang bulaklak sa mundo gamit ang kanyang malarosas na kamay. Yes, this is more poetic. This is more descriptive. So Sister Zai, good job in maintaining the style. However, there's something wrong with the translation of Sister Zai. And what is it? I want you to analyze Sister Zai's translation. What do you think is the problem with Sister Zai's translation?
Sir, maybe in terms of using the word mundo, maybe it is better if I should use the word lupa or
Yes, that's also one. That's one of the problems because it's unnatural for us Filipinos to use mundo as someone na pinanggalingan ng flower. So that's one. Kasi in English, that represents, earth represents lupa. But in Tagalog, if we translate it directly or word or literally, medyo unnatural for Filipinos. Pinitas niya ang bulaklak sa mundo. It's like, it's weird. It's also not poetic. It's not poetic and also it's unnatural for Filipinos. Aside from that, Sister Zai, what do you think is the other problem with your translation? It was what?
sir, wala na akong maisip.
Okay, ang nakita ko dito ay kanyang malarosas na kamay. San mo nakuha yung malarosas na kamay? Yung scarlet ba dito pertains to the hand of the girl who picked the flower from the ground, or is the scarlet here pertaining to the rose, to the color of the flower?
Sa ano, sir, sa kamay ng girl, sir. I'm pertaining from yung kulay ng kamay ng girl. Yung parang siyang, kumbaga, sir, yung kamay ng girl is yung parang
Mapula-pula.
pinkish or what? Yes, mamula-mula.
Yes, but if you will understand the source text, scarlet was the rose. So here in this text, scarlet pertains to the rose, not to the hand of the one who picked the flower. Do you get it, sister? Are we clear with that? Did we get the idea that I'm trying to say? Uy, ano na? Nagets ba natin?
Opo.
Yes po.
Yon, di ba? In the source text, it was not the hand of the girl. It was the rose whose color is scarlet or mapula-pula, mamula-mula, or mapula. Okay? So, ayan, nakita natin yung translation ng iba. Let's try to read more. Sabi, si Scarlett ay tulad ng rosas. O si Julia dito, si Scarlett. Sorry, na-like ko. Ano na, yung kay Julia na, nagkaroon na ng tao. At yung tao kay Julia ay yung Scarlett. Pero dun sa sentence, Scarlet is the color of the rose. So, saan ang galing si Scarlett na tao dito sa translation ni Julia? I don't know. So, dito rin papasok yung ulit yung understanding natin of the text. We should understand it first before we translate it into the target language. So, for Luella, si Scarlett din, ayan, kay Danica, mapula ang rosas na pinili niya mula sa lupa. So, ayan, no? Nakita natin yung naging problem natin in translating this particular text. So, if I will be translating this into Tagalog, this will be my translation of it. Dugo, ang kulay ng rosas na marahang pinitas niya mula sa lupa. It's more poetic and it's more descriptive comparing to the first style that we've introduced in the earlier example. Right? Sa kanina, di ba? She picked a red rose from the ground. Pumitas siya ng pulang rosa sa lupa. Very straightforward, very direct, very simple. But here, it became more descriptive and poetic. That's why if we will translate this into Tagalog, it should also be poetic and descriptive. Dugo ang kulay ng rosas. Kanina, pumitas siya ng pulang rosas eh. Pero dun sa ano, nagkaroon na ng specific type of color. It was not only color rose. It was not only color red. It was scarlet. So here, in my translation, paano ko ba i-describe yung color ng red? So medyo deep yung scarlet, so that's the reason why I was able to translate it into something that is also deeper red, which is blood. Dugo ang kulay ng rosas na marahang pinitas niya mula sa lupa. It's more poetic, it's more descriptive. Another way of writing this particular sentence is this. Diba? Ang daming version na pwede nating gawin. From the ground, she delicately plucked the ruby rose, cradling it in her hands as if it were a priceless jewel. So, di ba? Sir, ang dami naman ito. But parang humihirap naman ito. Pero the thing is, in literature, this is what we will be encountering. Believe me, we're just in prose right now. Wala pa tayo sa poetry. We're just in prose right now. But in poetry, this is poetic and this is more descriptive. Pero this descriptive and more poetic way of writing, yan din yung mga ma-encounter natin when we are already translating poetic or, yes, poems. Because that's the counterpart of prose, okay? It's poetic, okay? Or poems. So yan. Here, it's also poetic, but in this particular way of constructing the sentence, the author already utilized an imagery. And what is an imagery? To those who are having their literature class with them this semester, what's imagery? Ano yung imagery? Anyone? What do we mean by imagery in literature? When we talk of imagery, it has something to do with you allowing your readers to experience or to paint a picture in their mind while they are reading that particular text. That's why it's called imagery. You're painting a picture in their minds for them to visualize it, to feel it, to really grasp and to really feel the very message of the text. So here, this is a very poetic way of uh, of of constructing the sentence I have provided earlier, but here we utilized imagery. Anong sabi ulit? From the ground, she delicately plucked the ruby rose, cradling it in her hands as if it were a priceless jewel. So, another task, try to translate this in Tagalog in a more poetic way, but applying imagery. Sige. Again imagery, I'm hoping is already clear with us. When we say imagery, you are painting a picture in the reader's mind. You are making them feel, you are making them visualize everything that you've seen, everything that you can imagine. So how will you translate this in Tagalog? Making it poetic, but at the same time utilizing the figurative device or this device imagery in poems or in literature. Sige, your time starts now. You will have 1 minute to translate this. Let's just try, and just like my instruction a while ago, you have to type in your translation of it in Tagalog here in our comment section. So sorry, this is it. From the ground, she delicately plucked the ruby rose, cradling it in her hands as if it were a priceless jewel. Are we done? Okay. Let me see the responses of everyone. Sorry, I think may I see your translation, everybody? Tignan natin. Oh, what happened? Okay, let me just fix this. Let me share. And sorry. Okay. So have we seen or did we see any uh translation here? Yan, nakita natin, no? Ito, let's read Roan's Roan's translation. Can you read it to us, Roan?
Marahan niyang pinitas ang rosas mula sa lupa at inilagay niya ito sa kanyang palad na para itong isang diamante.
Okay. Okay, that's your own translation of it. What about Lara? Can you read your translation of it?
Mula sa lupa, dahan-dahan niyang pinitas ang rosas. Hinaplos ito sa kanyang mga palad na tila isang kayamanang walang katumbas.
Okay. Okay. That's also a good translation of it, making it more poetic and applying the device of imagery. What about Julia? Hello, Julia. Can you turn on your microphone for us and read your translation of it in Tagalog?
Mula sa lupa ay marahan niyang hinawakan ang mamulang-mulang rosas na para bang wala itong kakumpas.
Okay. So yan, very good. Mostly your translation are acceptable. It became more poetic, and also you were able to utilize imagery. Last kay Sister Zai, can you also read it to us?
Maingat niyang pinitas ang rosas mula sa lupa, waring hinahawakan niya ang isang bihirang hiyas.
Okay. What about you, JP?
Mula sa lupa, marahan niyang pinitas ang rosas at hinaplos ito ng kanyang mga kamay na tila ba'y isang kayamanan na walang katumbas.
Okay, that's also a good one. Okay, so let's go back with my presentation. So if I will be translating this particular text, following or maintaining the style of it, of poetic and utilizing the device of imagery, this is how I will translate it in Tagalog. Mula sa lupa ay maingat niyang pinitas ang rosas na pulang-pula, inaplos sa kanyang mga palad na parang isang kayamanang walang katumbas. So that's how I would translate it. Very similar din sa mga marami sa inyo, no? So that kagaya ng sinabi ko, most of your translations are good, following the poetic or this particular style. So please maintain that. Again, the key point here is that when we are encountering literary pieces, whether it be stories, poems, etc., the very idea is to maintain the style. And talking about the style, there are actually different parts of style in writing or particularly in literature. So here are some of the key parts that work together to make up a piece of literature style. So the style that we're talking about, how will we be able to understand the style of it? How will we be able to maintain the style of it? It's through understanding and it's through learning these parts of style. And the first part of style that we will be discussing is the diction. What do we mean by diction? When we talk of diction in literature, it is the style of the author's word choice. Sir, di ba diction has something to do with your pronunciation? Yes, that's correct. However, in yes, Angelica, you're raising your hand. Do you have questions? Angelica, I saw you raising your hand. Do you have questions? Okay, wala na. So going back, sir, diction sa pagkakaalam ko has something to do with your pronunciation. Yes, it's correct. But in speaking, diction has something to do with that. But in writing, we're talking about writing right now. Diction has something to do with your word choice. What do we mean by word choice? So let's talk about this. So here, let's try to have the word happy as our word choice. But happy can also have different levels, or we can also have different levels of words for happiness. You can also be glad. You can also be joyful. And all of these words are actually simple words. So, for example, I want to express that I am happy right now. But instead of using happy, I want to say I'm joyful. I'm feeling joyful. So that's my diction. That's my choice of words in writing. Again, we're talking about writing. So, for example, in translating the diction, we also have to translate it differently. Happy is different from glad, as glad is different from joyful. So when we translate it into Tagalog, how will you translate glad? Is it still masaya? Or maiiba na siya? Because we're talking about diction, choice of words. So happy, the equivalent of it in Tagalog is masaya. So if I change my word as glad, or if I change happy to glad, will it also differ when it comes to its translation? That's my question. Anyone who would like to answer? Raise your hand. I use glad in my construction. So when I translate it into Tagalog, hindi ba pwedeng gamitin ko rin yung masaya? Kailangan maiba na rin ba siya? Okay. According to Angelica, maiiba po. Glad po in Tagalog is may galak po para sa akin. So see, even in Tagalog, there's also different wordings or different levels of happiness when we're talking about happiness. It can be magalak, maligaya, diba? So let's try to translate this one. Glad can be magalak. Joyful can be maligaya. Iba kasi yung kapag sinabi mong masaya ka, pero iba rin kapag sinabi mong mas magalak ka, at iba rin kapag sinabi mong maligaya ka. So it's also different. When we are translating texts, we should also know what particular choice of word or how will we translate this word that the author utilized in his construction or in his or her construction. If he utilized, For example, not happy. Hindi glad, hindi joyful kasi simple words lang yan for happiness eh. Gumamit siya ng more expressive words. Sinabi niya, I'm feeling ecstatic today. I'm feeling delighted today. How will you translate this into Tagalog? Sige, let's try to translate this into Tagalog. The first one is ecstatic. How will you translate this into Tagalog? Nakita natin, no? May different versions, may different ways of translating glad, happy, and also joyful. What about ecstatic? Because it's also similar with happy. So how will you translate ecstatic into Tagalog? Sige. I want you all to translate ecstatic into Tagalog. Maligalig, according to Angelica. What about the others? Aside from maligalig. Masigla, di ba? Nag-iiba-iba siya. So that's what we mean by diction. So ecstatic can be nag-uumapaw sa tuwa because you became more expressive. That's why you used ecstatic rather than glad, joyful, or happy. So yung magalak, naging nag-uumapaw sa tuwa. What about delighted? Pwedeng labis na nagagalak because it's more expressive rather than joyful, rather than happy, rather than glad. Do you get my point? This is what we mean by diction, okay? The choice of words of the author. Anong word yung gagamitin ko for the sentence? Gagamit ba ako ng happy? Gagamit ba ako ng ecstatic? Gagamit ba ako ng enthusiastic? So next, let's proceed with structure. What do we mean by structure right now? This is still part of style. So earlier, when we talked of style, nakita natin no, yung from simple to poetic, more descriptive, to poetic, utilizing the device imagery. Nakita natin differences ng choice of words. Part siya ng style, yung diction. Ngayon naman, also part of style is structure. And what do we mean by structure? When we say of structure, it is the way words are arranged in a sentence. Nakita rin natin to kanina dun sa binigay nating examples nung nag-iba-iba yung style. From simple one to more descriptive one and more poetic one. Nakita natin nag-iba-iba yung way ng pagkaka-arrange ng mga words sa sentence. So this affects the style. The structuring of it affects the style. For example, our original sentence is, she enjoys reading the books, or she enjoys reading books in her free time. So if I want to change the structure of it, I can actually restructure it in this variant or in this manner. She spends her free time enjoying books. Diba? It also has the same meaning, but we've seen difference when it comes to its structure. The original is, she enjoys reading books in her free time. The variation number 1 is she spends her free time enjoying books. Is it the same when it comes to its meaning? Yes. Pero nakita natin ang different structure niya. What about you? Can you try to create your own variation from the original sentence? She enjoys reading books in her free time. Sige, write your different version of it there. Or type it here in our MS meeting and then put it in our chat box. Gawa kayo ng sarili ninyong version of the sentence. She wants to waste her free time reading books. Okay. That's also an acceptable one. However, what's something wrong about Angelica's reconstruction or restructuring of the sentence? Sige, let's analyze Angelica's reconstruction here. She wants to waste her free time reading books. Anong mali dito? Grammatically speaking, this is correct. She wants to waste her free time reading books. So there's no error that we can find in terms of grammar here in Angelica's reconstruction. However, what's wrong about Angelica's reconstruction of the sentence, of the original sentence? Anyone from the class? I think it's the idea of wasting. That's what is unnatural for me, or that sounds weird, that you want to waste your time reading books. It's instead of wasting, there are other terms that we can utilize. Yan, tignan natin yung reconstruction ni Julian. Reading books in her free time is what she enjoys the most. O yun, pwede yun, di ba? Julia, she uses her free time reading books. Pwede rin. So we can see different reconstruction of it. And it affects also translation. Okay? Please keep in mind that. Another variation that we can use, in her free time, she loves to read books. Diba? What else? Reading books, is what she enjoys to do during her spare time. Pwede rin yung ginawa kong variant na yun. So that's what we mean by structure. We can restructure the sentence in different ways, but still maintaining the meaning of it. Another part of style is tone. What do we mean by tone? Tone is the author's attitude towards the subject. And what do we mean by attitude? Mind you, I'm pretty sure you're already familiar when it comes to the tone and mood in literature. I mean, this was discussed to you, this was taught to you when you were in junior high school or senior high school. The difference between mood and also tone. So talking about the difference of it, can someone remember the difference between tone and mood in literature? When we speak of tone, this has something to do with the author's attitude when he is writing. When we talk of mood, it's more of an audience. It's more of the audience, the reader. Ano yung nafe-feel niya kapag binabasa niya yung construction or yung text na ginawa ng author? Do you get the difference between the two? Tone and mood? Tone is the character of the writer, the attitude of the writer when he or she is writing the text. When we talk of mood, it has something to do with the feeling that the audience or reader feels or experience every time he or she reads. Because sometimes, for example, my attitude is serious. But if the reader saw it or interpret my text that is serious when I am actually writing it, humorous, biglang naging humorous dun sa part, yung interpretation ng reader, humorous, yun yung mood niya nung binasa niya yung text mo. Yun yung na-feel niya. Do we get the difference between tone and mood? If we get the difference, react. Any buttons. It can be like, love, applause, anything. Just for me to see if you really get the difference between tone and mood. Okay, I can see mostly, ayan, reacting. So that means that you already understood the difference between mood and tone. So here in translation, we're more concerned on the tone of the writer rather than the mood, because mood has something to do with the reader. So again, that's why we will focus more on tone. So for example here, we have the tone of serious and suspenseful. And this is the construction. The house stood in eerie silence. Okay, sorry, yung pagkakabasa ko hindi kasi serious and suspenseful. So let me modify the way I recite this. The house stood in eerie silence, its windows like dark, hollow eyes watching her every move. Diba? So the tone of this is very serious and suspenseful. Nung binasa mo siya and na-feel mo na parang you felt scared, that is your mood. Scared. So if we will translate it into Tagalog, how will you translate this into Tagalog? This is my translation of it. Nanatiling tahimik at nakakakilabot ang bahay, habang ang madilim nitong mga bintana ay tila mga matang nagmamasid sa bawat kilos niya. Diba? So, was I able to maintain the mood? Na-maintain ba natin yung mood na suspenseful and serious?
Yes po.
O, diba? Yun. That's also one of the things that we should maintain in translating literary pieces. Hindi lang siya about the style, hindi lang siya about the diction. It's not only about the structure, but also the tone. We should also keep and maintain the tone. Okay? Are we clear with that? Okay. So next, ito naman, how will you translate this sentence or this question or this rhetorical question into Tagalog, applying the mood, I mean the tone of sarcastic, being sarcastic and humorous? Let me read the text. Of course, spending 10 hours a day on social media is the key to success. Who needs real-life interactions? How will you translate this, applying the tone of becoming sarcastic and humorous? Sige, I'll give you 2 minutes to translate this. Again, we have to maintain the tone of the writer that is humorous and sarcastic. Kailangan sarcastic yung pagkaka-translate ninyo. Kailangan nakakatawa din. That's humorous nakakatawa. So, sige, try nating i-translate this into Tagalog. Anyone? Yan, you still have 50 seconds to translate this particular text into Tagalog. Again, maintaining the tone of the writer that is being sarcastic and also being humorous. Okay, nakita natin dito yung translation ni Luella. Natawa naman ako sa translation ni Luella. Parang yung sumisikat na sumakses ka eh. Alam niyo ba yun? Yung sumisikat sa social media na yung girl, I forgot the name, si Nina, di ba yung parang yung sumakses ka, step by the step, parang ganun yung ano niya. Anyway, sabi ni Luella dito, syempre, ubosin ang 10 oras sa araw-araw sa social media ay ang susi upang makamit ang saksis sa tunay na buhay. Luella, ano ba to? Ayusin mo yan. It should be humorous, not this way. Kasi, bakit? Gets natin na si Luella siguro dito is trying to become humorous. But what's the problem with Luella's translation? The problem with Luella's translation is that there are already grammatical errors here. There are already the presence of someone, you are referencing someone who is viral on social media that is absent in the original text. Here, it's very plain, but it's humorous. Wala tayong referencing. Dito, sabi lang, of course, spending 10 hours a day on social media is the key to success. Who needs real-life interactions? There's no presence of someone na wala tong reference. This is very straightforward, humorous, and sarcastic. So that's what I think. Something that is missing with Luella's translation. What about the others? Si Luella lang? O, try niyong i-edit to. Luella, i-edit mo to. O yung iba, ano, wala? How will you translate this into Tagalog? Of course, spending 10 hours a day on social media is the key to success. Who needs real-life interactions? Let's try Cindy. Sige, Cindy, can you please read your translation?
Duh! Ang pagbabad sa social media ng mahigit 10 oras sa isang araw ay isang tagumpay. Sino bang may gustong makipag-usap sa totoong buhay?
Okay. I appreciate the translation, Cindy. I think you were able to maintain the meaning of it, but the context is missing the feel. It's more formal. It's more on the formal side. It's not conversational because in the original text it's conversational. You can actually envision someone telling this to someone, having a conversation and telling this to someone. So how will you maintain that vibe but still being humorous and also sarcastic? Mariel, can you read your translation?
Siyempre, 10 oras lang sa social media yung kailangan para magtagumpay. Sino ang may kailangan sa pakikipagsalamuha?
Okay, I think this is also the same problem with Cindy, very formal. Let's make it more conversational. Sige, let's read Lara's translation. Lara?
Siyempre naman, ang paggugol ng 10 oras bawat araw sa social media ang susi para magtagumpay. Sino ba naman ang nangangailangan ng mga totoong interaction sa buhay?
Okay, I think this is more also on the formal side. Although medyo na less yung mga words, medyo naging informal, pero I think the vibe of it is still too formal. Let's try to see my translation of it. My translation is, syempre naman, 10 oras sa social media araw-araw ang susi sa tagumpay. Sino ba namang may kailangan pa ng totoong kausap, di ba? Do you get it? It's more conversational. Ganun siya, di ba? Parang it's more conversational because the vibe of it is that you feel like the author or the text is pertaining to someone. You're talking to someone, di ba? Of course, spending 10 hours a day on social media is the key to success. Who needs real-life interactions? So ako dito, parang, ayun, sino ba naman ang may kailangan pa ng totoong kausap, di ba? So medyo nandun siya sa more conversational side. So that's also what you need to maintain in translating, di ba? Hindi lang siya yung about, ay, na-translate ko na to, tama to. Kasi tama naman yung meaning niya, na-maintain ko yung meaning. Pero the context of it, were you able to maintain the context? Again, babalik pa rin tayo dun sa idea ng context retention, which is very important. Okay? So, yun. Sige, moving forward, the last part of style that we will be talking about is the POV. Are you familiar with the point of view in writing or in literature? So when we talk of point of view, this is how the story is being told. That's what we mean by point of view. This is how the story is being told. So there are actually different types of POV. The first POV that we will be discussing is the first person point of view. I'm hoping that we're all familiar with the first person point of view, but for us to review this, can you read the first person point of view? Maybelline.
First-person point of view. First-person point of view lets readers see events through the narrator's eyes using I, me, and my.
Okay, meaning to say, the person who is actually telling the story is whom? It's or the narrator of the story is also part of the story for us to easily understand. In the first person point of view, the writer of the story is also part of the story. That is why the pronouns to be found in the text that utilizes the first person POV uses the pronouns of I, me, and my. In addition to that, it provides direct access to their thoughts and feelings, but it is limited to their knowledge and perspective. Meaning to say, you are telling the story. We can access your thoughts and your feelings because you are telling the story, but it's only limited to your knowledge and perspectives because we cannot access other characters' minds, thoughts, and feelings kasi ikaw yung nagkikwento ng storya. And we can't do that. No, we can't say na, si Maybelline ngayon ang iniisip niya. Ang gusto ni Maybelline ngayon kumain ng marami. Ang gusto ni Roan ngayon kumain ng samgyupsal. Hindi, di ba? We can't do that in real life. But in first-person point of view, when you're telling the story, when you are writing the story, you can only access your mind. We can only see your thoughts and your feelings, not the other characters' feelings and thoughts. So this is an example of a text written in first-person point of view. First of all, let me get something straight. This is a journal, not a diary. I know what it says on the cover. But when mom went out to buy this thing, I specifically told her to get one that I didn't say diary on it. What makes it in first person point of view or in first person POV? Syempre nakita na natin yung pronouns na I and me. But do we get the idea of the first person point of view? Sino dito, ay sir, medyo nalilito ako. Hindi ko po na-gets kung ano yung first person point of view. Anyone from the class? When we talk of first person point of view, as a writer, kasama ako sa story. That's the very point of it. For example, I am the writer. Ako yung nagsulat ng story. Ako yung nagsulat ng isang literary piece. Ikikwento ko doon yung experience ko. Habang naglalakad ako sa labas ng paaralan, nakita ko si JP kumakain. Humingi ako ng food sa kanya, pero hindi niya ako pinansin, hindi niya ako binigyan. That's in first person point of view because I'm telling the story in which I am part of. That's first person point of view. Do we get it? Gumamit ba ako ng ako? Yes. Gumamit ba ako ng I, ng me? Yes. So here, how will we translate this into Tagalog following the first person point of view? Can anyone translate this into Tagalog? Sige, try nating i-translate to into Tagalog following the first person point of view. First of all, let me get something straight. This is a journal, not a diary. I know what it says on the cover, but when mom went out to buy this thing, I specifically told her to get one that didn't say diary on it. Nagets niyo ba yung context nung text? So, yung tao, pinapatunayan niya na yung libro niya or yung book niya is a journal, hindi siya diary. So, yung cover, sinasabi, diary siya. Pero, sinabi niya sa nanay niya na ang bilhin ay journal. Pero ang binili ng nanay niya ay parang notebook na may diary na nakalagay doon, hindi journal. Sige, try nating i-translate to into Tagalog. I'll give you 3 minutes. Your 3 minutes starts now. Do we have any responses? As of now, wala pa, no? Sige, I'll wait for your responses. Try to translate this into Tagalog following the POV of first person. Natawa ko dito sa translation ni Angelica yung last. May chismosa na. Saan nanggaling tong chismosa? Aba, syempre, ang pag-ubos ng 10 oras sa social media ay kaaangat ng buhay ng mga chismosa dyan. Natawa ako. Saan nanggaling yung chismosa? Okay. Time's up. Let's try to type in our responses. Let's see kung ano yung translation natin. Okay. Sige, Roanne, can you please share to us your translation?
Una sa lahat, dediretsuhin na kita. Journal ito at hindi diary. Alam ko kung ano yung nakalagay sa harap, pero nung sinabihan ko si nanay na bumili nito, sinigurado ko na sabihin na bilhin niya yung hindi diary yung nakalagay.
Okay, very good. This is, I think, a very good translation of the original text that was mentioned earlier. Is it in first person point of view? Yes, because we've seen here ko, ano pa? Yung ko, yung ko, which represents I. Una sa lahat, didiretsuhin na kita. Kita is actually in second person, pero um, the whole text of it is in first person. Minsan kasi nagagamit yung kita kapag naka first person ka. Pero yun, kailangan nating i-analyze kung nagsasalita ba siya, part ba siya nung storya or nung text mismo for us to determine if that's in first person. Journal ito, hindi diary. Alam ko kung ano yung nakalagay sa harap. Pero nung sinabihan ko si nanay na bumili nito, sinigurado ko na sabihin na bilhin niya yung hindi diary yung nakalagay. This is, again, I think, a good example of a translation based from the original text we've seen. So, tama, no? If I will be translating it into, try to put as well your responses while I'm discussing it. This is my translation of it in Tagalog. Una sa lahat, gusto ko lang linawin. Journal ito, hindi diary. Alam kong iba ang nakasulat sa cover, pero nang inutusan ko si mama na bumili, sinabi ko na sa kanya na wag yung may nakalagay na diary. Diba? Pwede rin. It's conversational and we were able to also retain the point of view, which is in first person. We can see here the pronouns ko, kong. Diba? Una sa lahat, gusto ko lang linawin, hindi ito journal, hindi diary. Sorry. Journal ito, hindi diary. Alam kong ibang nakasulat sa cover, pero nang inutusan ko si mama, I think this is nang utusan, nang hindi nang inutusan. Pero nang utusan ko si mama na bumili, sinabi ko na sa kanya na wag yung may nakalagay na diary. So, next, let's discuss the second person point of view. So even first person point of view, you are part of the story. You're telling your experience to your readers. Here in second person point of view, it's different. This directly addresses you or the reader of the text. You are addressing the reader of the text by means of saying you. It is rare in fiction unless the narrator speaks personally to the reader. So, rare lang siya gamitan yung second person point of view in fictional literary pieces. So, sir, sang mga literary pieces yung madalas yung you? Yan, we see second person point of view mostly in poems, speeches, instructional writing, and also persuasive articles. So, for example, this one, you walk down the empty street, your footsteps echoing in the silence. The wind blows against your face, sending a chill down your spine. You don't know why, but something feels off. You glance over your shoulder, no one is there. Still, you can't shake the feeling that someone is watching you. This is in second person point of view. You are addressing the person who is reading the text. In the first person point of view, did I address the reader? In-address ko ba siya? In-address ko ba siya? Sa first person point of view, did I address the reader of the text? Sinabi ko ba na, hoy ikaw, ganiti gawin mo, basahin mo to. May ganun ba tayong nakita sa first person point of view? Wala. Sa first person point of view, we just narrated our experiences through our text. However, in the second person point of view, we are addressing already the reader. That's why nandito madalas yung pronouns na you, your, etc. Okay? So how will we translate this into Tagalog following the second person point of view? So try to translate this on your own. Pero here's my translation of it. I'll show you. Naglalakad ka sa tahimik at walang taong kalye. Tanging mga yabag mo lang ang naririnig mo. Umihip ang hangin sa mukha mo. Nagpapadala ng kilabot sa iyong likod. Hindi mo alam kung bakit, pero may kakaibang pakiramdam. Lumingon ka sa likod, wala namang tao, pero hindi mo pa rin maiwasang maramdaman na may nakamasid sa'yo. But were we able to maintain the tone? Yes, the tone of it is suspenseful as well and also serious, kind of creepy. So in translating it, we were able to maintain as well the tone. And at the same time, alongside maintaining its tone, we were also able to maintain the point of view of it, which is in second person point of view. Okay? And lastly, third person point of view. What's the difference of third person point of view to first person point of view? If in first person point of view, you as a writer is included in the story, you're part of the story. Here in the third person point of view, you are not part of the story. The writer is not part of the story. The writer is only a spectator. Okay. Spectator lang siya. Nakikita niya yung nangyayari and kinikwento niya yung nangyayari. Hindi siya part ng story. If the narrator is a character in the story, we see events through their eyes with three possible perspectives. So, pwede rin po na under ng third person point of view na maging part yung narrator ng story. Pero in third person point of view, you are also showing three possible perspectives. Perspective niya at ng mga ibang tao na kasama mo sa story. So, what do I mean with third person point of view? Again, you're not part of the story. You're just telling the story that you've witnessed outside. So, for example, this one. She hesitated at the doorway, her fingers trembling against the handle. The room was dark, the air heavy with silence. Something felt wrong, but she stepped inside anyway. Kwento ko ba to? Ako ba yung naka-experience nito? Hindi. And that makes it not first person point of view. This experience was experienced by a girl who is not obviously the writer. That's why here in third person point of view, we will see here pronouns she, her, he, them, they. Yan yung mga usually pronouns na makikita natin sa third person point of view. Do we get it? Na-gets ba natin ang difference ng third person, first person, and second person point of view? I'm hoping that's clear. And again, the reason why I'm telling you this is because in translating, we should also maintain the point of view. Okay? So if I will translate this into Tagalog, this is how I will translate this. Napahinto siya sa may pintuan. Ramdam ang panginginig ng mga daliri sa hawakan. Ang dilim sa loob ng kwarto at parang ang bigat ng hangin na sobrang katahimikan. I think katahimikan is better than tahimik. May mali ramdam niya, pero pumasok pa rin siya sa loob ng kwarto. Kung i-add ko lang, okay? So that's how I translated this. Do we get it? Okay, what's your takeaways so far in our discussion? What are your learnings? In literary translation, we will focus right now on prose, by the way. Next week, we will be discussing more about poetry. Okay? Actually, since we're talking about literary translation, I'll be giving you anyway, before we proceed with the activity, who has questions regarding this, or what are your takeaways? Can we start with Gracie Rose? Good afternoon, Gracie. What have you learned? Did you learn something? Is Gracie Rose here?
Sir, present po. Sorry
Ayan.
po. Sir, ang naano ko po is kung paano po nilalagay yung mga sa POV po, kung paano po i-describe yung mga translations ang bawat isa po.
What about that? Paanong ilalagay?
Kung paano po siya i-describe ng different persons po.
What do you mean? Because our job as a translator is not to write stories. Our job is to translate texts that were already written to begin with. So, for example, if the POV in a certain passage is in first person point of view, what do you mean by putting something? You've mentioned maglalagay ka. Ano yung ibig mong sabihin doon? It's kind of unclear to me, your message. I just want to clarify kung ano yung gusto mong sabihin. Sabi dito ni Angelica, small details in literary or in literature is what matters the most, or is what matter the most po, to come up with good translation. Small details such as the style, the different parts of style, etc. What else? Sige, balik tayo kay Gracie Rose. Ano yung meaning mo dun sa pag naglalagay ka ng something? Yun yung nakuha ko kanina sa sharing mo eh. So I just want to clarify, ano yung ilalagay?
Sorry po, sir, di ko na po maisip yung sasabihin po. Sorry po.
O yun, nawala ka na. Sige, mamaya balikan ulit kita. Who else? Who wants to share their learnings, their takeaways in today's discussion? Yes, Julia.
Ano po, to translate without removing the original feels and style of the author.
Okay. Particularly when it comes to the vibe of it, it's not only about the parts of the style, but to the whole vibe of it. I guess that's what Julia is trying to say. What about the others? I think JP raised his hand earlier. JP, what are your takeaways? What are your learnings? Yan, let's have Lara first.
Sir, for me naman po, translating literary text po, nagre-require po siya ng more than just word-for-word conversion po. It involves capturing the essence, tone, para po makapag-create po tayo ng version na feels authentic po and engaging po sa mag-read.
Exactly. So kayo, 'di ba, na-build na natin yung idea last meeting ng context retention. So nakita na natin na not all the time what's the two types of fidelity? I mean equivalence. Not all the time formal equivalence will work. Sometimes or most of the time, we can see that dynamic equivalence is mostly utilized in texts. But even if we already know certain concepts about this, pero kanina nung ina-ask ko kayo mag-translate, nakikita pa rin natin na nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng mistranslation. Hindi pa rin natin somehow nakukuha yung vibe. Nakakalimutan pa rin natin i-input yung mga certain details na sinasabi ni Angelica kanina in translation or in translating. So it's not an easy thing to do. Translation cannot be done in just one night. It's a journey for you to be able to translate something successfully. It will not only take you few hours, it will take you days, it will take you a lot of time for you to be able to translate successfully a certain text. And imagine the job of translating a book. How hard it is to translate a book, 'di ba? For example, the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. I think the Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the earliest epics in the whole world, and it was translated into different languages. And in translating the Epic of Gilgamesh, makikita natin, binabasa lang natin siya in English, pero hindi natin alam yung pinagdaanan ng translator na yon. That's the job of translator. Now that we already know, since we are translating text, now that we already know how hard it is, I'm certain that our appreciation to the job or to the translators themselves will be higher. Yung magiging high yung appreciation natin sa kanila, no? So with that, we will be going back to the essential skills. So literary translators, or us, have sometimes been called double agents. What do we mean by this? Because we are serving two masters, like spies who work for both sides. We're not just working on translating, we're also working on understanding the text. We are also working on the context, the situation, the geography, the language that we are translating. So translators must be able to balance the original author's intent with the reader's experience in the target language. So again, we are working on two missions here. First one is to be able to translate the text based on the intent, original intent of the author, and we should be able to translate it in a way that it will give the same experience to our target readers. Literary translators as well must also understand the various contexts of the text, including its time period. This is what I'm saying earlier. We are like spy here. We're spying on the literary piece that we are translating. So we need to know the time period when it was written. Was it written during the World War II? Was it written during the Ice Age? May mga ganyan. So ano ba? Anong time period ba ito nasulat? So kailangan din natin yung i-take into consideration the geography of it and also the style, which we've talked earlier. These factors influence how the translation resonates with readers from different backgrounds. Okay? And with that, we will be having your short quiz. So I will be concluding already our meeting. Next, we will be meeting next week. But before we proceed with our next topic for this course, mag-e-exam muna tayo. Okay? This was announced to us by the dean of the college that the examination for Friday classes will be moved next week, hoping that it will be face-to-face na next week. So for your short quiz, ito na yung activity nyo. So just access the QR code. So yun lang. Do you have any questions? May I ask those people who were able to access already the QR code? Pa-raise ako ng hand kapag na-access nyo na yung QR code. Yan, na-access na ni Mariel. Sino pa? Again, do not forget to submit your responses and do not forget to take a screenshot. May link po ba, sir? I cannot po kasi. Sige. For those who can't access or who can't scan the QR code, here's the link. I sent it already here in the chat box. So were you able to access it? Pa-check ako Luella. Okay, accessible na siya, no? Again, for my instruction, do not forget to submit your responses and do not forget to take a screenshot of your response and do not forget to send it to our GC so that you have a proof that you've taken already the quiz. Okay? So that's all. Goodbye, everyone, and let's see each other next meeting. Thank you so much for attending our class. I will
Thank you
be
po.
explaining the activity next week as well. Okay? Goodbye.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
No worries. You may
Thank
now
you
leave
po.
the meeting.
So,